Usually when we talk about the power of language, we're talking about it as like a stimulant. It operates like cognitive caffeine.
Right.
You read a gripping thriller, and your pulse physically races. Or, you get a 2-word text from your boss at like 9 p.m. that just says, call me.
Oh, yeah, the worst.
Right. And your cortisol just immediately spikes. You listen to a phenomenal high-stakes debate, and your brain is just firing on all cylinders. You're completely wired, wide awake, and fully engaged.
Well, yeah, because we are deeply conditioned to utilize language as a primary tool for neurological activation. I mean, words are the mechanism through which we problem solve, right?
Yeah.
They're how we alert each other to impending danger, and they're the building blocks we use to construct these incredibly complex, active, demanding realities in our daily waking lives. Language basically evolved to keep us alert to our environment.
But then you step into the world of a very specific kind of auditory narrative, and suddenly that entire paradigm just completely flips. Words are being weaponized, and I mean that in the most positive therapeutic sense possible, as a literal anesthetic.
Yes.
We are looking at a linguistic architecture today that is fundamentally a schematic for shutting your nervous system down.
It really functions as the ultimate psychological lullaby. What we're examining is a text that intentionally, systematically reverses the standard biological function of storytelling.
Right.
Instead of building tension, it dismantles it. Instead of demanding your attention, it actively works to make you lose interest in your own thoughts.
Welcome to another deep dive. I am so glad you're here with us today. Usually, we took a stack of dense research papers or historical accounts or complex data sets, and we extract the vital insights to make you more informed about how the world works.
But today, the mission is entirely different.
Exactly. We are not decoding a text meant to stimulate your intellect or provoke a debate. Today, we are exploring the source text of a highly structured guided meditation and sleep narrative known as the Moonlit Forest Cabin. And our goal here is to understand the hidden mechanics of story talking.
Right, we really need to unpack how a very specific, deliberate sequence of words combined with rhythmic pacing and meticulously chosen sensory imagery, how all of that operates together to bypass the critical, hypervigilant waking mind.
The focus is really on the intersection of narrative and neurobiology.
Exactly. We're going to explore how story structure can actually physically alter your autonomic nervous system, shift your brainwave state, and drastically lower your heart rate.
Let's unpack this, because the underlying paradox of this whole concept is just fascinating to me. Like, as someone who constantly devours books, reading is what keeps me awake. If a narrative is well crafted, I'm easily up until 3 a.m. because my brain demands to know what happens in the next chapter. The cognitive loop is open, and it needs closure. But this specific type of story talking is engineered to achieve the exact opposite outcome.
It actively wants you to lose the thread.
Yes. It is a piece of media designed to make the consumer stop consuming it.
And to understand how it accomplishes that paradox, we have to look at the psychological journey mapped out within the text. We aren't just going to read it front to back today.
Right.
We're going to dissect the underlying themes. So, starting with the architecture of psychological permission, moving through sensory cognitive load, and then ending in the dissolution of the waking ego.
It's all so deliberate.
Oh, every single phrase in this text is a calculated intervention. None of it is accidental art. It is functional engineering designed to guide you from a beta brainwave state of high alertness down into the delta waves of deep restorative rest.
Well, the text initiates this process in a way that feels incredibly abrupt, yet completely necessary. I mean, it doesn't open with the traditional scene-setting, establishing shot.
Right, no, once upon a time.
Exactly. We don't get Once Upon a Time in Dark Wood. We get an immediate, direct address to the listener. The text literally says, tonight, there is nowhere you need to be. Nothing you need to finish. Nothing you need to solve.
It's very direct.
And immediately following that, it moves into physical somatic cues, telling the listener to let their shoulders become heavy, let their jaw soften, and take a slow, unstructured breath.
Yeah, so this opening sequence functions as a psychological airlock.
An airlock, like moving between pressurized zones on a submarine or a spacecraft.
Think about the physics of that transition. Before you can safely move a human being from one environment, say, the chaotic, high-pressure, oxygen-rich environment of a space station, out into the absolute stillness and void of space, you cannot just open the door.
Right, the pressure differential would be catastrophic.
Exactly. You have to place them in a transitional chamber. You have to slowly equalize the pressure. in the mechanics of story talking, before the narrative can successfully transport a listener into a fictional, deeply relaxed neural state, it first has to systematically sever the cognitive ties to their high-pressure waking reality.
Because the modern waking world just demands constant vigilance.
It really does. So this opening acts to depressurize the prefrontal cortex.
The deliberate pacing of the source text really emphasizes that depressurization too.
Yeah.
I mean, it relies heavily on short, definitive, almost blunt sentences. There is this massive repetition of negative space.
Yes.
Nothing you need to finish, nothing you need to solve. There is no need to hurry. It feels as though the text is actively, kind of aggressively dismantling the brain's internal to-do list.
It's a great way to put it.
I equate it to sitting at my computer at like 6 p.m. and just closing 100 open browser tabs. Click, click, click. The processing power is slowly being reclaimed.
Yeah, the text is directly confronting what cognitive psychologists refer to as the Zeigarnik effect.
Remind us what that is again.
So it's this well-documented phenomenon where our brains have a strong, almost compulsive tendency to obsess over uncompleted tasks significantly more than completed ones.
Oh, right.
Your brain keeps those mental browser tabs open because it genuinely believes it's aiding your survival. It's constantly generating a low-level anxiety signal, whispering, don't forget we have to solve this logistical problem.
That sounds exactly like my brain on a Tuesday night.
Right. So by using that specific repetitive phrasing, the text steps in as an external, authoritative voice. It takes the burden of executive function away from the listener and simply states, we are closing these tabs for you.
Okay, wait, I have to challenge the actual efficacy of that approach, though. Is it genuinely that simple? Because the human mind is notoriously resistant to direct commands to power down.
That's true.
There is that classic psychological thought experiment, right? If I tell you, do not think about a pink elephant, what happens?
You immediately see a pink elephant.
Your brain immediately, vividly generates an image of a pink elephant. It's the ironic rebound effect. So if this audio track is sitting there telling me, hey, you have nothing to solve, doesn't that just violently remind me of the massive, complicated quarterly report I absolutely have to solve by 9 a.m. tomorrow?
It's a very fair question.
How does this airlock avoid triggering a massive stress response?
See, that is the exact trap that poorly written relaxation scripts fall into, and it's precisely what makes this specific text so sophisticated. Notice that it does not tell you to stop thinking.
Oh, I see.
It never demands that you wipe your mind blank or forget your problems, because as you pointed out, suppression inevitably leads to amplification. Instead, the text demands a shift in temporal responsibility. Look at the specific phrasing that follows the opening. It says, whatever happened today can remain in today.
Ah, so it is drawing a hard boundary around time rather than around the thoughts themselves.
Exactly. It's an exercise in compartmentalization, not denial. The text is not insulting your intelligence by pretending the quarterly report doesn't exist. It acknowledges that the stress is real, that the obligations are heavy, but it surgically removes your immediate obligation to engage with them in this exact moment.
So it's about giving permission to pause.
Right. It essentially says, these problems are valid, but they are not authorized to enter this specific hour of the night. They can wait at the door. It is granting explicit, authoritative permission to put down the psychological luggage. Telling someone, do not think about your stress, induces panic. Telling a highly stressed person, you do not have to fix this right now, induces a massive wave of physiological relief.
And once it establishes that boundary, once it grants you that permission, it immediately pivots to anchoring that mental surrender in the physical body.
Yes.
It says, let your body settle into the softness beneath you. It seems to be trying to lock in the psychological shift by syncing it with a physical posture.
Well, the mind and the autonomic nervous system operate on a continuous two-way feedback loop. When you're stressed, your mind tells your body to tense up, preparing for action. But the reverse is also true.
Right.
If you can use language to convince the body to mimic the exact physiological posture of sleep, a softened jaw, unspooled shoulders, open hands, and a slowed respiratory rate, the physical body begins sending signals back up the vagus nerve to the brain.
It sends an all-clear signal.
Exactly. It tells the amygdala that because the body is vulnerable and relaxed, the environment must be safe, and therefore the brain can power down its threat detection systems.
So the airlock sequence is fully cycled. We are depressurized mentally and physically, but nature abhors a vacuum.
Right.
Once the listener is given this permission to disconnect from their real-world anxieties, the narrative has to immediately provide a substitute reality for their mind to inhabit. I mean, if you take away my rumination about tomorrow's schedule, you have to give me somewhere else to direct my cognitive spotlight, where those worries are just going to rush right back in to fill the empty space.
Absolutely.
And this is where the architecture of the story utilizes its next tool, which is sensory grounding.
Yeah, we transition from the psychological airlock directly into the construction of a highly detailed, immersive sensory environment.
The text places the listener at the very beginning of a narrow forest path late at night, and it builds this environment with an incredible density of meticulously chosen details. It reads, "A forest filled with tall pine trees, old oak trees, soft moss, hidden streams, and quiet paths. Tonight, the moon is full. Its silver light falls gently through the branches."
It's very vivid.
It even dictates the temperature and texture of the air, describing it as cool, clean, fresh. Then it layers in an auditory soundscape, so the distant call of a night bird, the rustling of dry leaves, the sound of water flowing quietly over smooth stone.
Right, and if we evaluate this through the lens of cognitive load theory, what we're witnessing is a masterclass in hijacking the brain's processing bandwidth.
Hijacking the bandwidth.
Yeah, because the human brain, for all its immense power, has a finite amount of working memory available at any given second. Consider a really common everyday experience. Have you ever been driving your car in an unfamiliar neighborhood, trying to read tiny house numbers in the dark, and you instinctively reach out and turn down the volume on the car radio?
Oh, every single time.
Yeah.
I physically cannot see the house numbers if the music is playing too loudly, which, makes zero logical sense on the surface, but it is a profoundly real compulsion.
Actually, it makes perfect neurological sense. Your brain realizes it is maxing out its cognitive load. It's desperately reallocating processing power away from auditory processing so it can dedicate all available resources to the visual task of finding the address.
Wow. Okay.
Story talking deliberately exploits this bandwidth limitation for a therapeutic purpose. By forcing the listener's visual imagination to construct silver moonlight and demanding their auditory imagination simulate a flowing stream and engaging their tactile imagination with the temperature of cool night air and soft leaves, the narrative is intentionally maxing out the brain's RAM. It's flooding the system.
Exactly. It's a peaceful, highly orchestrated sensory overload. Your brain literally lacks the processing power to simultaneously obsess over an interpersonal conflict at work, while it is being actively directed to simulate the physical texture of moss and the acoustic properties of wind moving through pine needles.
That is brilliant.
It forces a network switch in the brain, pulling you out of the default mode network, which is responsible for rumination and anxiety, and placing you firmly into a sensory-focused, present-moment state.
So it gives the working memory a deeply engaging, immersive task that is entirely devoid of threat. But looking at the mechanics of this journey, I have a logistical question.
Okay.
The text spends a significant amount of time describing the act of walking down this path. You take your first step, slowly, then another. And it repeatedly references a tiny golden light shining far ahead in the distance between the trees. If the ultimate objective of this deep dive is to get the listener into a cozy, relaxing cabin so they can fall asleep, why force them to take a hike through the woods at all?
You mean, why not just start there? Yeah. Why not just start the narrative with the listener already tucked under a heavy quilt inside the warm bed?
Well, because you cannot shock the human nervous system into a state of relaxation. The physiological transition must be gradual. The journey itself is just as critical as the final destination.
Thus so.
Consider the state of the listener entering this experience. They're coming from a waking state, likely carrying residual stress. Their baseline heart rate might be elevated, perhaps 75 or 85 beats per minute. If the narrative immediately dropped them into a bed and demanded stillness, there would be a massive, jarring disconnect between their physical reality, like a racing heart and tight muscles, and the narrative reality of deep rest.
The gap between the two states would be too wide to cross in a single jump.
Precisely. The walk through the forest serves as a physiological bridge. The cadence of the walking described in the text mimics the gradual, step-by-step lowering of the human heart rate. The text says, step by step, your breathing becomes slower.
Ah, I see.
The rhythmic pacing of the footfalls in the story is designed to subconsciously slow the listener's actual respiratory rate. It meets the listener where they are awake and mobile and slowly walks them down the staircase of arousal.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about that tiny golden light in the distance? Why is it emphasized so heavily as a focal point?
That light functions as a narrative beacon, and it solves a major problem of waking life, which is decision fatigue. In our daily lives, we are forced to make thousands of micro decisions. We are constantly orienting ourselves, analyzing our environment, and choosing a path.
Constant navigation.
Right. The golden light eliminates all of that. It pulls the listener forward effortlessly. You do not have to navigate the forest. You do not have to choose between a fork in the road. You simply drift toward the warmth.
So it's removing the burden of choice.
It requires zero executive function, zero decision-making, which is the exact inverse of our busy, exhausting waking lives. It allows the mind to transition from an active driving state into a completely passive, receptive state.
That transition from active to passive leads right into the next major architectural shift in the text. The listener finally arrives at this small, warm wooden cabin, and there's a highly specific, very deliberate moment that occurs right at the threshold.
Yes, the doorway.
Right, so you step onto the porch, you hear the quiet crackle of burning wood from inside, you open the heavy wooden door, and then the text instructs you to do this. You take off your coat. And as you do, you imagine that you are also removing the weight of the day. Every worry, every responsibility, every unfinished thought, you place them beside the door.
That sequence is an exceptionally brilliant application of a somatic metaphor.
A somatic metaphor being a physical action that represents a psychological state.
Yes, exactly. Embodied cognition shows us that our brains deeply link physical sensations to emotional states. The human brain struggles immensely to process abstract, intangible concepts like, letting go of worry or releasing anxiety.
Right, because what does that actually look like?
Exactly. If you just tell yourself to let it go, there is no physical anchor for that action. But this narrative links that abstract psychological release to a physical action that every human being has deep ingrained muscle memory of.
The profound physical relief of shrugging a heavy, wet winter coat off your shoulders.
Yes. It gives the abstract anxiety a physical weight and a location. The narrative trains the listener to merge physical comfort with mental detachment. Because you know exactly how to take off a coat and how your shoulders feel a fraction of an inch lighter after it, the story co-opts that neurological pathway.
That's incredibly smart.
It gives you a physical avatar for your exhaustion. You take off the coat, therefore, you have successfully taken off your worry. It remains by the door, it is no longer on your person.
It makes the invisible visible and therefore manageable. And once you're inside the cabin, unburdened by that heavy metaphorical coat, you sit down in a comfortable chair by the fireplace. And this is where the text shifts from visualization into something that feels incredibly, undeniably hypnotic. The text describes the sound of the fire using this exact phrasing: crackle, pause, crackle, pause. It tells the listener that their thoughts are allowed to just appear and fade, like leaves floating down a stream. But I really want to focus on that rhythm. Crackle, pause, crackle, pause. It reads like the swinging of a pendulum. Is this just the author setting a particularly cozy auditory scene, or is there a deeper physiological hijacking occurring here?
Oh, it is entirely intentional, and it represents a massive shift in the text strategy. This is where story talking moves beyond simple imagery and enters the realm of physiological entrainment.
Entrainment, the phenomenon where two oscillating bodies eventually lock into the same rhythm, like pendulum clocks on a wall slowly syncing their swings.
Exactly like that. Biological systems, including the human cardiovascular and respiratory systems, are highly susceptible to entrainment. When you're exposed to a steady, repetitive, low-frequency rhythm, your biological rhythms naturally, instinctively want to align with it. The cadence of those specific words, crackle, pause, crackle, pause, literally mimics the acoustic pacing and rhythm of a resting human heartbeat and a vastly slowed, deep breathing pattern. The text even makes this subconscious link explicit a few moments later, stating, your breathing follows the rhythm, in and out.
So it's collapsing the boundary between the fictional environment and the listener's actual physical biology.
It is a total integration. You are no longer just an observer watching a fire. Your autonomic nervous system is syncing with the fire. The rhythmic, predictable rise and fall of the flames mirrors the rise and fall of the listener's chest. This specific tempo is a profound technique designed to stimulate the vagus nerve and induce parasympathetic nervous system dominance.
Which is the rest and digest state, right? Shifting away from the fight or flight of the sympathetic nervous system.
Precisely. By slowing the breathing through this auditory rhythm, it forces heart rate variability to increase, which chemically signals the brain to lower cortisol production and increase the release of calming neurotransmitters like GABA.
Okay, so if we look at where we are in the architecture, we have been depressurized in the airlock. We have walked the path to gradually step down our heart rate. We have utilized the somatic metaphor to shrug off the weight of our daily worries. And now, our very breathing is physically entrained to the rhythmic cadence of the words.
We're very deep in.
Right. The listener is safe, they're warm, and they are in a state of profound physical relaxation. And just when you assume the story is simply going to let you drift off into the alpha brainwave state to the sound of the fire, the narrative introduces a completely unexpected, highly complex structural layer. It introduces a story within the story.
The meta-narrative. This is where the psychological engineering of the text becomes truly sophisticated and ambitious.
Yeah, so the listener is sitting in this cozy cabin, completely relaxed, and they notice a dark green book resting on a nearby shelf. It has no title. They pull it down, sit back in the chair by the fire, and open it. And the text dictates that they read a story about the very forest they just walked through, cycling rapidly through the 4 seasons.
Right.
It begins with summer, describing golden sunlight, the sharp smell of hot pine needles, the low hum of bees. Then the page turns to autumn, the leaves changing to gold and dark red, detaching and falling slowly to the earth. Then winter. A heavy silence, snow covering the branches, the stream freezing over under a layer of ice. And finally spring, the snow melting into the earth, tiny green shoots appearing, the birds returning to sing.
It's a complete cycle.
And the realization dawns on the listener who is sitting inside the cabin reading this. The world outside the walls is in a state of constant, unavoidable, rapid change. But the cabin itself remains an unwavering, constant shelter.
This is a psychological distancing technique known as narrative nesting.
Narrative nesting. It feels very cinematic, like the concept of dreams within dreams from the movie Inception.
The mechanism is identical. By having the listener read a book inside an environment that they are already actively imagining, the story pushes the listener's consciousness one level deeper into the subconscious and one step further removed from reality.
Oh, I see.
You are no longer just a stressed person lying in a bed imagining a cabin. You are a person in a bed, imagining a cabin, imagining a book that describes the forest. It creates a psychological buffer zone. It generates an immense amount of narrative distance, pushing the immediate stresses of waking life so far to the periphery that they lose their emotional salience.
I understand the distancing effect, but I have a serious structural question about the author's thematic choice here. Because right before this book scene, there was an incredibly beautiful, entirely still moment where the listener looks out the cabin window and sees a silver deer standing in the mist.
Yes.
They share this quiet, breathless moment. No fear, just pure grounded stillness. It's a visceral connection with the present moment. And then suddenly, we are thrust into this time-lapse montage of the seasons. Summer, fall, winter, spring, zooming by. Everything is dying and being reborn. Why accelerate time like that? Why force the listener to focus on constant change, the passing of time, and the coming of winter, when the entire stated objective of this deep dive is stability and sleep? Doesn't contemplating the relentless passage of time usually induce a sense of existential anxiety?
That is a phenomenal observation, and it really cuts to the core of how this text handles the concept of anxiety. This seasonal sequence points to a profound psychological truth embedded within the narrative architecture. The story is effective precisely because it is smart enough not to lie to the listener.
How would it be lying?
If the story simply asserted everything in the world is perfectly still, nothing will ever change, you will never face another problem, and the forest is entirely static, the listener's subconscious would immediately reject it.
Oh, it would trigger the alarm bells.
Exactly. The amygdala would flag it as a falsehood. It would say, that is a lie. Tomorrow is going to be chaotic. The project is due. The kids are sick. The mortgage is pending.
It has to acknowledge reality.
The text does not attempt to deny that the real world is chaotic and constantly changing. The seasons do change. Time does pass. Winter representing hardship and death does come. Instead of employing toxic positivity or denying that reality, it offers a functional model for resilience.
Which brings to mind the line that follows the book. The seasons change, but the cabin remains. Always waiting, always warm.
Exactly. The core message being delivered to the subconscious is that you have the capacity to cultivate a stable, resilient core represented by the impenetrable cabin, despite the passing of time and the inevitable external chaos. It directly confronts the deep-seated human anxiety regarding change and our fundamental lack of control over time.
It's communicating a powerful psychological reframe.
Yes. You cannot stop the winter from arriving, but you can build a fire. You cannot stop the world from spinning out of control, but you possess a sanctuary inside your own mind that is utterly impervious to it.
It provides the listener with an anchor in the relentless stream of time. It validates the anxiety of change, but neutralizes the threat. And speaking of streams, that concept transitions us perfectly into the next layer of the descent.
It does.
After the book is closed and put away, the listener finally moves to the bed within the cabin. The text gently guides them to let go of any remaining stubborn thoughts from the waking world. And then, the listener actually drifts off to sleep within the story.
Right.
They begin to dream. We're now 3 psychological levels deep. We are in the real bed, imagining the cabin bed, entering the dreamscape.
We have transitioned from active conscious visualization into navigating the symbolic realm of the dream state.
In this nested dream, the listener finds themselves walking through the forest again. But this time, the text notes that they know the path perfectly. There is no uncertainty. They reach a small wooden bridge arching over a flowing stream. And here the text introduces another incredibly vivid, interactive visualization.
The paper bones.
Exactly. It prompts the listener to gather up all the intangible things they've been carrying.
Yeah.
So the lingering worries, the unanswered questions, the rigid plans, the heavy expectations, and it instructs. You imagine placing each one into a small paper boat. The first boat carries a worry. The second carries a question. The third carries something you cannot control. You gently place these delicate paper boats onto the surface of the water, and you watch as the current simply carries them away, spinning gently out of sight around the bend.
What we are looking at here is a classic cognitive behavioral therapy visualization technique, but it is beautifully camouflaged within a narrative mechanism. In clinical settings, we frequently talk about the necessity of letting go or detaching from intrusive thoughts.
Which is easier said than done.
Right, because letting go is a completely invisible, internal, abstract process. It is incredibly difficult to execute on command. By transforming those intangible, swirling anxieties into physical objects, the paper boats, and utilizing the kinetic energy of the flowing water, the story turns the abstract concept of psychological release into a tangible, almost gamified action.
You physically take the worry out of your internal landscape.
Yes, placing it into a fragile vessel and allowing the natural momentum of the environment to do the heavy lifting of carrying it away.
I find the imagery of the paper boats deeply cleansing. It's a beautiful way to externalize the internal noise. But I have to admit, I recoiled slightly at the scene that happens immediately after this release.
You're referring to the pond reflection.
Yes, the pond scene. So the boats float away, clearing the mental clutter, which is fantastic. Dragging those heavy mental files to the trash can makes perfect sense. But then the listener walks further into the dream and finds a clearing with a perfectly still pond. They kneel at the edge, they watch the moon's reflection on black water, and then they look down and see their own reflection. And the text delivers this incredibly intense line. For a moment, you see yourself exactly as you are. Not the person you think you should be, not the person others expect you to be, just you.
It is an incredibly heavy, profound moment of realization.
It feels vastly too heavy for a bedtime story. Isn't that demanding an existential reckoning right on the threshold of REM sleep? I mean, confronting your true, unvarnished self, entirely stripped of all societal armor, expectations, and identity? That seems like a recipe for a 2 a.m. panic attack, not a peaceful slumber.
It is a strong pivot, for sure.
Why would a script designed for relaxation deliberately push the listener into an existential crisis?
I completely understand why that shift feels jarring, almost confrontational. But if we examine the neurobiology and psychology of sleep, this exact confrontation is actually an essential prerequisite for deep rest.
Wait, really? How so?
Consider what actually keeps a healthy human being awake at night. Assuming you have shelter and are physically safe, it is rarely physical discomfort. What keeps us awake, staring at the ceiling, is our identity. It is the ego. It is the project manager who has a crucial presentation at 8 a.m. It is the parent agonizing over a child's struggles. It is the friend replaying a socially awkward interaction from a party.
It is all the distinct roles and masks we're forced to wear throughout the day.
Precisely. Our waking identity is a highly complex, rigid construct built upon layers of external expectations, interpersonal relationships, and societal duties. The ego is inherently vigilant. Its job is to protect that identity.
Right, it's always on guard.
Exactly. So to truly deeply fall into the restorative phases of sleep, you have to temporarily surrender that entire construct. You have to take all the hats off. You have to cease being the manager or the parent or the provider, and you must evolve back into a simple biological organism requiring rest.
Which gives profound context to the line. Not the person others expect you to be, just you.
By explicitly acknowledging and then gently stripping away those heavy layers of expectation through the metaphor of the reflection in the pond, the narrative is granting the waking ego permission to dissolve for the night.
It's not causing a crisis, it's resolving one.
Right. It prevents the existential crisis by guiding you safely through it. It shows you that the core fundamental you is still entirely intact and is perfectly safe, even without all the titles, tasks, and armor. It facilitates the ultimate profound surrender that biological sleep demands.
And immediately after that realization, the reflection is disrupted by a ripple on the water, and the text says, "You do not worry. You understand. Everything changes." And then out of the darkness, that same silver deer from the window appears again in the dream.
The guide returns.
It makes eye contact with you, turns gracefully, and leads you back through the forest, out of the dream, and back to the physical bed in the cabin.
The deer is serving a very specific mythological and psychological function here. It is acting as a psychopomp.
Ah, a psychopomp. I love that concept from Jungian analysis. The guide that transitions souls between realms, right?
Yeah.
Like Hermes in Greek mythology taking souls to the underworld.
Exactly. In this psychological context, it isn't guiding you to the underworld, but it is guiding the pure self, which has just been stripped of its waking ego at the pond, safely back from the depths of the unconscious dreamscape, returning it to the safe, grounded containment of the cabin bed.
So it's protecting that vulnerable state.
The ego dissolution is a vulnerable state, yes. The deer provides a benevolent, guiding presence, ensuring the mind doesn't get lost in that deep psychological territory, but instead transitions smoothly into actual physical sleep.
That provides a tether back to safety. So the deer guides you back, you lie down in the cabin bed, you close your eyes, and the text shifts tone definitively. It says, "And this time you sleep deeply, peacefully."
The transition is complete.
The story explicitly informs the listener that the world is continuing without them. The fire continues to burn, the stream continues to flow, but the listener is entirely relieved of duty. Time passes in the narrative. And then we get this wonderful, sweeping auditory shift. A gentle rain begins to fall.
Tap, tap, tap. The sound touches the roof.
It becomes steadier, heavier. The text explains that the sound washes away every remaining stray thought. Only rain, only warmth, only sleep.
The introduction of the rain at this specific juncture serves a vital tactical function. Up until this point, the story has been demanding a magnificent amount of active, participatory visualization from the listener.
Right, you had to picture the boats and the deer.
Exactly. You had to actively picture the paper boats, construct the reflection in the pond, and follow the silver deer. But now that the narrative architecture assumes you are balancing on the very edge of sleep, or have perhaps already slipped into stage 1 sleep, it radically switches tactics. It drops the cognitive demand to 0.
The rain just takes over.
The rain acts as a final, enveloping auditory blanket.
It transitions from a narrative journey into pure narrative white noise.
Exactly. It completely removes the need for complex imagery or plot tracking, replacing it with a simple, rhythmic, constant, non-threatening soundscape. It is the linguistic equivalent of a mechanical sound machine turning on in the background.
Just to smooth everything out.
Its sole purpose is to drown out any final stray neurons firing in the waking brain, soothing the auditory cortex into complete submission.
And reading through it, it really feels like the absolute end of the line. The listener is deeply asleep, the metaphorical rain is falling, the cabin is warm, the ego is dissolved, mission accomplished, time to roll the credits, right?
You would think so.
But the source text does not end there. And this is perhaps the most puzzling, counterintuitive, and yet brilliant part of the entire architectural blueprint. The narrative abruptly skips hours ahead in time.
The storm passes, the rain stops, and the stars begin to fade.
Right. The text literally says, "Somewhere beyond the trees, morning begins. A faint blue light appears, then a soft golden glow. The forest birds begin their morning songs." And then, incredibly, the story actively wakes the listener up.
It does.
Then, slowly, you begin to wake. It describes sitting up in the sunlight, feeling refreshed, walking outside onto the porch, smelling the crisp morning air, touching the wet, rough bark of the old oak tree, and walking back over the bridge into a brand new day.
It's a full cycle of rebirth.
I have to tell you, I was genuinely baffled by this structural choice. I mean, if the entire point, the sole metric of success for this text, is to put the listener to sleep, why on earth does the story wake them up at the end? If I am listening to this in my bed at 11:30 p.m., desperately trying to get some rest, doesn't talking about the morning sun and getting up out of bed completely defeat the purpose?
It seems like it would reactivate the system, right?
Yeah, doesn't it just undo all the work?
It seems wildly counterintuitive on a surface level, but this specific choice reveals the true, long-game strategic brilliance of this type of narrative architecture. This text isn't just about knocking you unconscious for a few hours. It is engaging in active subconscious programming.
Subconscious programming. How does waking up in a story program the brain?
We have to look at the root causes of insomnia. A massive driving component of chronic sleep difficulty is anticipatory anxiety regarding the following day.
Oh, the dread of tomorrow.
We often struggle to fall asleep because our brain is dreading the moment we have to wake up and face the stress again. We associate morning with the alarm clock, the rush, the cortisol spike, the dread.
That is so true.
By vividly describing a peaceful, refreshed, and deeply calm awakening, by explicitly telling the listener that they will wake up feeling lighter, calmer, rested, the story is setting a powerful, positive intention for the subconscious mind.
It is essentially planting a psychological seed while the soil of the mind is freshly turned and receptive.
Yes, it is utilizing classical conditioning. It is giving your nervous system a detailed rehearsal of a successful, low-stress morning. When you do eventually wake up in reality hours later, your autonomic nervous system has already been handed a blueprint for how it is supposed to feel about waking up.
Wow, so it's preempting the morning anxiety.
It rewires the brain's predictive algorithms, which significantly reduces the nighttime cortisol spikes that keep us awake in the first place. But there is a second, perhaps even more vital reason for this morning sequence.
Which is?
It provides a psychological exit strategy that elevates the story from a mere temporary escape into a permanent portable tool. Look closely at the final interaction in the text. As you walk away, you look back at the cabin, and the text says, you realize the cabin was never only a cabin, it was a place to rest, a place to remember that you do not have to carry everything all the time.
It explicitly informs the listener that they can take the cabin with them into their chaotic waking life.
The exact quote is, whenever the world becomes too loud, you can remember this forest.
It completely reframes the entire 60-minute experience. It is no longer just a fictional destination you visit to run away from your life. It has been transformed into a durable psychological resource you can access during your life.
Exactly.
By carefully walking the listener back out of the deep forest and into the bright sunshine, it integrates the profound peace of the night with the harsh reality of the day. It turns a bedtime story into a highly effective, portable coping mechanism for daytime stress.
So well said.
So, synthesizing everything we have unpacked today, we have journeyed from the edge of the dark woods, passing through the airlock of psychological permission. We have occupied the cognitive bandwidth with sensory grounding. We've synced our biology to the hypnotic rhythm of the fire.
We navigated the psychological distancing of the meta-narrative.
We floated our egos down the stream with the paper boats and finally walked back out into the programming of the morning light. It is a staggering piece of psychological architecture we've explored today.
It really highlights a fundamental truth that we often overlook, Narrative is not just a passive medium used to transmit information or provide fleeting entertainment. It is a profound, active tool for autonomic nervous system regulation. The specific sequences of words we choose to consume literally chemically shape our physiological state in real time.
And that brings us to the core takeaway for you, the listener. The beauty of this framework is that you do not just have to use this architecture when you are lying in the dark at 2 a.m. trying to battle insomnia. The concept of building your own mental moonlit cabin, a highly structured, sensory-rich internal sanctuary where absolutely nothing is expected of you, where you can consciously leave your heavy coat of waking worries at the threshold, is a visualization technique you can deploy anywhere and at any time.
Truly anywhere.
You can use it during a highly contentious, stressful board meeting. You can use it while packed onto a chaotic subway commute. Whenever you feel your sympathetic nervous system hijacking your body, you can mentally retreat to that constructed space. Intentionally sync your breathing to that imaginary fire crackle, pause, crackle, pause, and seize control to regulate your own nervous system.
It is ultimately about recognizing that you retain profound agency over your internal environment, even when the external environment is entirely out of your control. The cabin is always yours.
Exactly. Which leaves me with a final, slightly provocative thought for you to carry forward and mull over today. We began this deep dive by discussing how words are typically utilized as stimulants, and how stepping into this specific story was like discovering a master blueprint for tranquility. A precise machine designed to lower your heart rate and dissolve your anxiety.
A highly calibrated machine, yes.
So here's the question you have to ask yourself. If this specific story, with its carefully chosen cadence, its rhythmic pacing, and its deliberate use of negative space, is engineered to build a resilient cabin of peace in your mind, what kind of architectural structures is your daily media consumption building?
Oh, that's a great question.
If a meticulously crafted story can literally, physically lower your blood pressure, slow your respiratory rate, and coax your ego into a state of deep surrender, what are the chaotic, fragmented, high-anxiety stories you scroll through on your phone doing to your nervous system the very second you open your eyes in the morning? Every piece of media is a blueprint. Are you using them to build a cabin, or are you using them to build a cage?
That is a deeply important question worth examining every single day.
Indeed it is. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of the Moonlit Forest and the incredible mechanics of story talking. We encourage you to take a moment today to find your own quiet woods, whatever they may look like in your life. Until next time, take care.
Imagine a piece of literature where the author's ultimate goal, like their sole metric of success, is that you never actually finish reading.
Right. It is completely wild to think about.
Yeah. A story engineered from the very first syllable to basically dismantle your attention span and make you lose consciousness before the final page.
It completely upends the traditional rules of writing. I mean, normally an author wants to grip your attention and just refuse to let go.
Oh, for sure. They want you on the edge of your seat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here, they are actively trying to negotiate a hostage release with your waking brain.
Which makes today's source material such a brilliant paradox. So, welcome to this deep dive. Today we are examining a complete final script for a sleep story, and it is titled The Lighthouse That Remembered Dreams.
And we really have a great mission for this deep dive.
We do. We aren't just going to recap a bedtime tale for you. We are going to unpack the actual architecture of sleep storytelling.
Yeah, because it is a highly structured thing.
Right. We are going to explore how this specific script uses pacing, deliberate sensory imagery, and some surprisingly heavy emotional themes to biologically and psychologically hack the human mind.
Lulling it right into a state of deep rest. Because honestly, it truly is an architectural feat.
It really is.
Sleep storytelling isn't just, ambient white noise or some plotless drone. It is a highly structured psychological tool that is just cloaked in a narrative.
Yeah, cloaked is the perfect word for it. Every single word is chosen to trigger a specific physiological response. So to understand how that works, I want you to picture the opening scene the script lays out. You are immediately placed in a quiet night. The world has finally become still.
Which is such a powerful starting point.
It is. You are standing beside an ocean. The waves are moving gently beneath the moonlight. The wind is whispering through the grass, and you are walking down a narrow, earthen path toward a dark cliff.
The setting does a ton of heavy lifting before the plot even begins.
Oh, absolutely.
It immediately isolates you. There are no traffic sounds, no crowded rooms, no smartphones pinging, just the natural rhythmic elements of an empty coast.
And standing there on that coast is our protagonist, Clara. She is completely alone. And the script, it doesn't waste time on complex action sequences or intricate backstory at all.
No, it zooms right in.
Yeah, it explicitly focuses on very slow, gentle movements. There is a lighthouse on the cliff, and its golden light is sweeping across the dark sea.
And then there is that repetition.
Yes. The script repeats this phrase once, twice, again, and again. And underlying that sweeping light is the periodic, resonant ringing of the lighthouse bell gong.
That sweeping light and that bell, they are basically the foundational pillars of the entire cognitive hack.
Okay, let's unpack this, because when I first read that opening, I just kept visualizing a hypnotist's swinging pendulum.
Oh, that is a great analogy.
Or maybe like a really slow metronome sitting on a piano. The golden light sweeps, the bell rings. It really feels like the script is actively trying to physically slow down your internal clock by providing these recurring sensory anchors.
What's fascinating here is the clinical psychology behind that exact mechanism. That is what makes this so incredibly effective.
Right, because it's not just pretty words.
Not at all.
Right.
When we try to calm a dysregulated nervous system in a therapeutic setting, we use grounding techniques. Throughout your day, your brain is in a state of hypervigilance.
Constantly on edge.
Yeah, it is tracking a million unpredictable variables, emails, conversations, the car braking suddenly in front of you. That keeps your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, highly engaged.
So the brain is basically just stuck in high gear.
Precisely. So by introducing this repetitive golden light and the slow, resonant dong of the bell, the story creates a perfectly enclosed, predictable environment.
A safe zone, kind of.
Right. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, specifically stimulating the vagus nerve. It forces the brain to shift away from the chaotic, unpredictable anxieties of the waking world and synchronize with a simple pattern.
Wow.
You literally cannot maintain a high heart rate or rapid breathing if your brain is fully locked onto the slow, predictable rhythm of those imaginary waves.
It acts as a gentle rhythmic tether. I love that. It keeps you from floating back up into your own stressful, spiraling thoughts.
Sick.
But, that soothing rhythmic exterior is essentially just the lobby of this story. Because once Clara steps through the old wooden door of this lighthouse and climbs the endless spiral staircase, the narrative introduces a metaphor that is surprisingly profound.
It definitely takes a darker, a more melancholic turn than you might expect from something that is meant to help you relax.
It really does. I was a bit shocked. Clara reaches the top of the stairs and enters the lantern room. But the walls aren't covered in maps or nautical gear like you would expect. They are lined with hundreds of glowing glass bottles. Blue, green, silver, golden light shining from within them. And she meets the keeper of the lighthouse, this old man with a lantern named Elias.
And when Clara asks what is inside the bottles, Elias tells her they are dreams.
Specifically, the dreams people have forgotten.
And he doesn't shy away from explaining the harsh reality of why those dreams were forgotten either.
Man, that part hit incredibly hard. Elias says people forget their dreams because life becomes loud, they become busy, and they become afraid.
It is so poignant.
It is. And then Clara finds her own bottle, a glowing golden one, and touching it unlocks a deeply repressed memory.
Right, the memory of her grandmother.
Yeah, she is 8 years old, standing on a beach with her grandmother, drawing a lighthouse in the sand. And her grandmother tells her the lighthouse shines for someone who needs to find their way home.
Such a beautiful image.
But then we learn that Clara stopped dreaming, stopped writing, and stopped wondering entirely after her grandmother died. She just became practical, dizzy, and responsible.
She locked that gentle, vulnerable part of herself away in order to survive the acute grief. And then, just the mundane busyness of adulthood.
Okay, but this is where I have to push back a little on the strategy here.
Let's hear it.
A sleep story centered on repressed grief, the death of a beloved grandmother, and the crushing, mundane weight of practical adulthood. Isn't that way too heavy?
It sounds like it would be.
Right. I mean, if you are lying in bed trying to get to sleep, do you really want to be confronting the death of your own childhood wonder?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, on the surface, it seems entirely counterintuitive. Why not just tell a story about a happy bunny in a meadow, right?
Exactly. Give me the happy bunny.
But if we look at the cognitive behavioral principles of sleep anxiety, it actually makes perfect sense. Ignoring daily anxieties or pretending sadness doesn't exist, that rarely works for a racing mind.
Because it just pushes it down.
Right. If you tell an insomniac, don't be stressed, their brain immediately highlights the stress.
The classic don't think of a pink elephant problem. If you try to force yourself not to think about your impending deadline, that deadline is all you can see.
Yes. What this script does is far more sophisticated. It acknowledges the gentle melancholy we all feel late at night.
That quiet 2 a.m. feeling?
Right. When the house is quiet and the distractions of the day are gone, that is when the grief, the regret, and the feeling of missing out on life all creep in.
Yeah, they really do.
The story validates your quiet nighttime anxieties. But it doesn't just leave them hanging out in the open. It safely contains them.
Oh, it puts them in the glass bottle.
Exactly that. The heavy feelings are acknowledged, but they are physically contained within beautiful glowing glass bottles in a safe, magical room guarded by a wise old keeper.
That is so clever.
It takes the abstract terror of existential adult dread and makes it manageable, beautiful, and safe to observe from a distance.
It is a brilliant reframing. It is basically whispering to you, yes, you are sad, you are tired, you have lost things, but look how beautifully we can store that sadness for the night. But merely storing anxiety isn't enough to actually induce sleep. You also have to actively release physical tension. And that brings us to the most crucial mechanism in the script, which is modeled for the listener through a new character named Daniel.
This is a huge shift This is the turning point where the narrative moves from emotional containment to active physical release.
Yeah, because Clara isn't alone with Elias for long. We hear slow footsteps on the spiral staircase. Step, step, step.
Very methodical.
Right. A man named Daniel appears in the doorway. He is wearing a wet coat, he has a pale face, and these deeply tired eyes. And he is desperate. He wants to steal Clara's golden dream to open what he calls the door to yesterday.
He really represents a person entirely trapped in the sunk cost fallacy of their own past.
He wants one more day with someone he lost, his sister Anna. He has spent his whole adult life trying to force his way backward to bring her back.
It is heartbreaking.
It is, but Elias gently tells him that he cannot go back. And Clara realizes Daniel doesn't need to steal her dream, he needs to remember his own.
Which is a huge breakthrough for him.
Yeah, and when he finally stops trying to force a solution, a memory returns to him. He remembers Anna laughing, running through a sunny field with a brilliant red kite.
The great visual.
Clara tells him Anna doesn't need him to stay trapped in the past. She tells him he needs to live. Daniel touches a red bottle, briefly sees Anna on the beach, and she echoes that command. She tells him to go live.
The realization is powerful, but the script knows that cognitive realization isn't enough to release deep tension.
Right, knowing you should relax doesn't actually make you relax.
Exactly. So it revisits him a few moments later to show the physical manifestation of letting go.
And this is the sequence that completely blew my mind. Here is where it gets really interesting. Later in the story, Clara visits Daniel again in this sort of in-between dream space.
Right.
He is sitting by an open window, looking much older, and he is physically clutching that red kite from his memory. He remembered Anna, and he got stuck again, just holding on to the memory of her with a white-knuckle grip.
Still trapped.
Yeah. Clara tells him to honor her by living. And Daniel finally opens his hands. He physically lets go of the red kite. He watches it fly out the window up into the sky until it is just a tiny red dot. And only then does his face soften into peace.
It is a vivid visual metaphor for surrender.
It really is. When I was reading this, I couldn't help but compare that emotional release to the physical act of progressive muscle relaxation.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, when you purposefully tense up your shoulders, clench your jaw, make tight fists, and then you intentionally release them, feeling the tension drain out of your muscle.
That is exactly what it's doing.
Daniel has had this death grip on his grief. He is emotionally and physically clenched. Releasing that kite is the narrative equivalent of unclenching your jaw. He unclenches his mind so his body can finally rest.
It is an incredibly potent biological cue embedded right in the middle of a bedtime story. I mean, think about what is keeping someone awake at 2 a.m.
It is Daniel's problem.
Exactly. The listener is gripping tightly to a conversation they had 5 years ago, or a mistake they made at work, or the profound grief of losing someone. They are lying in the dark, physically tense, holding on to their own red kites.
Wow, yeah. We are all just sitting in the dark, holding on to our red kites, refusing to open our hands.
And Elias makes the thematic core of this explicit when Clara asks what the lighthouse really does. He says the lighthouse isn't really about sleeping at all, it is about waking up.
Waking up to life.
Yes. It reminds people to wake up to the life that have been waiting for them all along. By having you watch Daniel let go of his tension, it subliminally grants your own brain permission to put down the heavy baggage of the day.
It totally gives you permission to mentally clock out. But, okay, here is where the script pulls off its wildest maneuver.
It really takes a turn here.
It does. Once Daniel's emotional tension is released, and you are presumably feeling a bit lighter, the story doesn't just neatly wrap up. It doesn't follow a standard 3-act structure to a logical conclusion.
Not at all.
Instead, the mythology of the lighthouse drastically expands. The whole narrative fractures and shifts from a linear, logical progression into something incredibly surreal and disjointed.
The strict boundaries of reality just completely dissolve.
They evaporate. Elias passes his golden lantern to Clara, and she becomes the new keeper. Suddenly, a 10-year-old girl named Lily arrives at the door, mourning her mother.
Out of nowhere.
Right. And through a series of bizarre reveals, we find out Lily is actually Clara's future granddaughter. The script tells us the lighthouse doesn't exist inside normal time at all. It exists somewhere between yesterday and tomorrow.
It abandons the chronological rules of daytime reality entirely.
Then, to save the fading light of the lighthouse, Clara has to visit something called the First Dream behind a dark door, where she finds a young version of Elias. She learns that Elias's own daughter dreamed up the lighthouse to begin with.
It gets so layered.
So layered. The next second, Clara is suddenly transported to a village bookstore called The Dreaming Lantern, run by a woman named Margaret. And Clara realizes she has to sit down and write the very book we are currently experiencing to keep the magic alive.
It is a full-on paradox.
Yeah. And I have to ask about this time loops. Future granddaughters. The creating the creator. Doesn't this kind of complex Inception-style plotting stimulate the brain way too much for a sleep story?
This raises an important question, actually, because if you were fully awake, yes, it would absolutely stimulate you.
Right, I'd be trying to map it all out on a whiteboard.
Exactly. But this points to the neurobiology of how the brain actually transitions into sleep. Think about the hypnagogic state, that liminal space, right on the very edge of falling asleep.
Oh, yeah.
If you've ever paid attention to your thoughts in that moment, you will notice they stop making logical sense.
Oh, definitely. You will be thinking about paying your electric bill, and suddenly you are convinced that a giant tortoise needs to sign the check, and your brain doesn't even question it.
That is dream logic in action. When we are awake, our prefrontal cortex is in charge. It demands linear progression. A causes B, which causes C.
Making sense of the world.
Right. But to enter REM sleep, that logical analytical part of the brain has to power down, handing the reins over to the amygdala and the hippocampus, which process abstract emotions and memories.
Oh, wow.
So by intentionally blurring the edges of reality, by introducing future granddaughters and paradoxical time loops, the script is artificially mimicking the onset of the REM sleep state.
So it is feeding the brain the exact kind of nonsense it expects to see right before it shuts off.
It is forcing a cognitive decoupling. If the story remains entirely logical, your prefrontal cortex stays engaged. It tries to predict the next plot point, solve the mystery, or analyze the character motivation.
It stays awake doing a job.
Exactly. But when time stops making sense, your analytical brain gets overwhelmed. It essentially says, I cannot track this chronological puzzle anymore. I surrender. And that surrender is the physiological prerequisite for falling asleep.
It is like the script is holding your hand and slowly walking you across the border from daytime reality into a dream state, using the plot as a diversion tactic.
That is a great way to describe it.
And this complete dissolution of logic sets up the script's final and arguably most vital trick. The moment where the story literally steps out of the pages and directly into your bedroom.
The breaking of the fourth wall.
Yes. Clara realizes that her childhood dream wasn't to live in isolation in a lighthouse. Her dream was to tell stories that make lonely people feel less alone.
Which is beautiful.
It is. Her golden dream light fades into the ocean because she realizes dreams are meant to be shared, not hoarded in glass bottles. And right at that moment of beautiful narrative resolution, the script pivots completely.
It is a massive shift.
It stops telling Clara's story. It abandons the third-person narrative altogether.
It transforms from storytelling to active, direct guidance.
Yeah, the text actually reads, and perhaps one day you may see it too. Perhaps on a quiet night, when the world becomes still, you will close your eyes. You will hear the sound of waves.
It is so direct.
It starts speaking directly to you, the listener. It commands you to let your thoughts become quiet, to listen to the imaginary waves. It feels exactly like the gentle fade out at the end of a really great song.
Oh, I love that comparison.
The realization hits you that the story we just read is the story Clara wrote in that bookstore to help people sleep. The narrator stops being a distant storyteller and suddenly becomes a soothing guide sitting right next to your bed.
The mechanics of that shift in pronouns are just brilliant. Moving from the third-person narrative about Clara and Daniel to the second-person, you, is a profound psychological transfer of energy.
How so?
Well, for 15 minutes, the listener has watched Clara and Daniel find peace, resolve their deep-seated grief, and let go of their physical tension. By suddenly shifting to you, the script takes all of that accumulated peace and effectively transfers it directly onto the listener.
It is like handing the listener the golden lantern.
It is. It says, they found their peace, they let go of their kites, and now it is your turn. It also uses incredibly suggestive clinical language in this final phase.
Like what?
Phrases like, let your thoughts become quiet, or the day slowly drifts away. It is no longer suggesting relaxation through metaphor. It is directly instructing your nervous system to shut down, using the safe, contained environment of the lighthouse as the backdrop.
And it ends by bringing back that recurring, grounding motif from the very beginning. The final bell rings. Dong. The golden light passes over the ocean. The waves become softer, and the guide tells you that your dreams are finally finding their way home.
It is so cohesive.
It is an incredibly hypnotic, sensory-rich package that brings everything full circle.
It really proves that sleep storytelling isn't just about being boring. It is about taking profound human experiences, grief, hope, memory, the feeling of being overwhelmed by life, and using narrative resolution to trigger physical relaxation.
It is functional art.
Exactly. It creates a space where you feel seen, validated, and ultimately safe enough to finally close your eyes.
It gives you a physical place to put your anxieties so you don't have to carry them into your sleep. And that actually brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with.
I'd love to hear it.
Something to mull over the next time you are lying awake in the dark, struggling to shut your brain off. The script suggests that when we forget our dreams, they don't die. They wait for us in this beautiful lighthouse guarded by an old keeper.
Right.
So what if the very act of going to sleep isn't just a biological necessity? What if it isn't just about resting our tired physical bodies, but taking a necessary nightly journey?
A journey to where?
A journey to visit the parts of ourselves, our old hopes and forgotten wonder, that we are simply too busy, too practical, or too afraid to listen to during the loud hours of the day.
That is a fascinating perspective.
Maybe we aren't just turning our brains off. Maybe we are going back to check on the things we have left behind.
A lighthouse waiting just beyond the darkness of the conscious mind.
Exactly. Think about that the next time you close your eyes and let the imaginary waves roll in. What forgotten dream is waiting for you in a glowing glass bottle? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It has been great.
It has been an absolute pleasure unpacking the architecture of sleep storytelling with you. We hope you will join us for our next exploration, where we will dive into another fascinating corner of the things that shape our world.
Until next time.
Until then, just remember, somewhere out there, a golden light is sweeping across the water. Once, twice, again, and again. Sleep well.